Hello and welcome to The Telescope. Every week we bring you a fresh insight from the biggest car market in the world. This is the Leapmotor C10. This is the second Leapmotor model reviewed by The Telescope. The first one is the very first video featured on this channel. That's the Leapmotor T03. I said at the time that was a world-beating budget EV. Well, this, as we speak right now, a ship full of C10s are traveling to Europe, so this car is very relevant for European viewers. Now, this looks like a very innocent, family-looking SUV, right? But it's going to have a touch of Maserati in it very soon. Chinese market likes big cars. This is also not small. We'll put up the measurements here. It's significantly bigger than its most direct rival in Europe, and that's the Volkswagen Tiguan. This C10 is almost as big as the newly announced BMW X3. It's big, but it's not excessively big. How so? The width of this car is exactly 1900 millimeters. That is precisely the width limit of most mechanical parking spaces. Now, don't worry, they all have about 40 millimeters of extra tolerance, so you won't scratch the wheels. And also highly unusual for a full battery electric SUV, this car is not overweight. This car's BEV version comes in at 1965 kilos, which is just a smidge under the 2000 kilo weight limit. Now, I know there are mechanical parking spaces that can accommodate bigger cars, but I'm saying even if you come across a more restrictive one, you're still gonna be fine. You can fit this car in just. It's slightly unusual for me to mention driving in a review this early on, especially for a family SUV. But because this car is slightly unusual in this regard, because usually Chinese clients want the cars to be more comfort biased. They want the cars to be more softly sprung. That's also partially because Chinese roads used to be quite rough. I'll give you one example. The China-made BMW long wheelbase 3 Series drives nothing like the European-made standard wheelbase 3 Series. It's a lot more comfort biased. So it's a breath of fresh air when I started driving this. It feels quite European. It's not that soft. It doesn't roll around. This car has a lower roll gradient. That's how much the car rolls under a certain level of lateral G-force. This car rolls less than the Volkswagen ID.4. And that's a really European car. Even the Chinese-made ID.4 is tuned almost identical to the European ID.4. And this car, I can tell, is at least on a similar level of roll resistance compared to the ID.4. And that's very rare for a Chinese car. We showed you a while ago the Geely Galaxy E5, and that car, I said, has a lot more roll compared to the Volkswagen ID.4. And to be honest, that's the expectation for a typical Chinese car. So this Leapmotor C10 is kind of unusual in this regard. It bounces at all the right places. The body movement corresponds to your expectation when you see the road surfaces ahead. And that means if you're an experienced driver, you build up confidence in this car really quickly. You can get familiar with this, start driving quite aggressively, almost from the get-go. Of course, it's still a 230 horsepower family SUV, so surprise, surprise, on the limit, it understeers. And it gets better. Leapmotor now is 20% owned by Stellantis. And this car, the Leapmotor C10, is currently being tuned by Maserati. The guy's name is Federico Landini. Sorry, I just checked. He's not an average guy. He's the VP of Stellantis Group.
Zhao Federico Landini, Hulalzi Hidali, Hen Gauxing He Daija Jaimian.
He and his team tuned the Maserati MC20 Evo Car of the Year 2022. Now, I'm not saying this Leapmotor C10 will be transformed into an Italian sports car. It's still going to be a 230 horsepower family SUV, but this is one of the true benefits Stellantis can bring to Leapmotor. This car is heading for Europe, is being tuned by Europeans, and it's not just any Europeans, it's Maserati. The back seat of the C10 is perhaps unusually big for the European car market. Now, I'm 5'11" or 182 centimeters. This is very generous, but it also means this car has a smaller than usual boot. Now, this is the compromise Leapmotor has chosen because of the Chinese car market. I went in depth on this subject on why does cars in China has a particular focus on the back seat in my Volkswagen Tiguan L Pro video. That is a Tiguan with extended wheelbase that's only available in China. This car more than matches the back seat of that Tiguan L Pro, but this boot is about 100 liters smaller than the European spec Tiguan. Now, because of this smaller than usual boot, I would suggest Leapmotor to consider a 4-to-4 split back seat. Currently, this is on a 40-60 split to give this boot a little bit more flexibility. This interior has unbelievable material level for a €16,500 car. Is that the first time I mentioned the price? I'm going to do that quite often in this video because I need to put you into perspective. It's soft touch leather everywhere, but it's PU, not real leather, if you care about this. I would be perfectly happy with hard plastic on a car this price, this size, not too long ago. And here we are. And it's not just good materials. The chip that's driving this infotainment is the Qualcomm 8295. That's the same chip driving the infotainment of the Mercedes E-Class. To be honest, on the day of this car's launch press conference, when it says it will have 230 horsepower rear-wheel drive, a 70 kilowatt-hour battery, that's quite big, cell to chassis, 5-link independent rear suspension, that's very similar to the Volkswagen MEB platform, a body torsional stiffness of 42,500 newtons per degree. To put you into context, the Model 3 torsional stiffness is about half of this car. Qualcomm 8295 infotainment and a price of €16,500. Our reaction at the time was, there must be something wrong with this car. And now this car has been on sale for about 5 months now, and it's already doing very well in its segment. And so far, nothing seemed to be wrong. I should add, especially for our European viewers, this car is designed to fully meet the Euro NCAP safety standards. But still, this is a car that's originally designed for the Chinese car market. It's currently doing very well. It's the 3rd best-selling mid-size SUV in China. The 2 cars selling better than this are significantly cheaper than this. And the 4th best-selling mid-size SUV is also a Leapmotor. What changes should this car make if it wants to do well in Europe? Well, firstly, I think it could sacrifice a little bit of this, the rear legroom, for a bigger boot. Maybe move the hip point forward a little bit. I know that costs a lot of money in engineering. Or if you want to spend less money, give this car a 4-to-4 split backseat. So when we're sitting 4 passengers, you can still load some long items through the boot. Because Europe doesn't need a China spec rear cabin, but they do value a bigger boot. Secondly, this interior. Now, I know I'm picking bones on a car that's already ridiculously inexpensive. However, for the sake of being balanced, this interior could have more layers. I mean, currently it's like a big sheet of PU leather covering everything, which is definitely nice, but maybe a little bit more sophistication. If you're struggling to understand this car, I am as well. I don't get how could it fit so much for so little and doesn't appear to have cut any corners. And I'm someone who's constantly exposed to the Chinese car market, and this still appears to be insane value. Now, part of the reason is because Leapmotor does a lot of this car's R&D in-house. This is not simply a collection of Chinese supply chain. And now being constantly among the top 3 EV startups in China, Leapmotor now enjoys a little bit of economy of scale as well. The good news is you will get to enjoy this as well for 16,500 euros, plus VAT, plus taxes, plus whatever tariff your country wants to charge towards this, of course. But tariff aside, I would say this, the Leapmotor C10 is the poster boy for the cutthroat competition here in the Chinese EV market. Once upon a time, China was asked to open itself to the world. Now we want the other way around. That is all from the Telescope today. If you enjoyed this video, keep watching, keep subscribing. More videos coming along very soon.